Hey, what is Chambers of My Heart? What is that?
Hey guys, it's your humble host, or Kid if you prefer, so I'm back with another video. Okay, so I literally promised myself when I discovered this individual, this was maybe a year or two ago, when I found out PearlyThingz was an associate of the transformed wife who, you know what, I'm not going to say anything, I don't like her, and I don't like PearlyThingz. Now, I promised myself because PearlyThingz, in my opinion, is low-hanging fruit. At that point, you were just beating your head against a wall because people like her and who she clings to don't listen to anything for shit. Now, what I came across literally made me stop what I was doing, which was a PSD file. And it's like, I actually have to respond to this. I don't want to, but here we go. So, just to give you a little bit of context as to what she's talking about chivalry. And as we know chivalry today, it is a man being a gentleman the way that I see it, holding open the doors, opening the car doors, a lot more traditional. And no, it's not a feminist concept because I'm going to show you with a simple Google search where chivalry started. And it is a simple Google search. Anyway, let's start this video, and I'm going to make sure, now my audio's up. Okay, goody. So, just to get the bullshit out of the way for all the red pill people or the new version of the red pill movement that comes and finds this video, I am traditional conservative. I'm a Save James admin. If you don't know what that is, I will put a link in the description to the Facebook below. I'm considered a church lady, a prude, cat lady, whatever. I don't care. But with that bullshit out of the way, for the most part, I'm not one of these OnlyFans thoughts or these porn stars that is constantly being argued with or railed against. So, and that's a whole other ball of wax just to let you know, hey, here's what I do, here's who I am, up front. You can find videos of my real face. I don't claim to be the prettiest rose in the bunch. Anyway, let's just get on with this because, oh my gosh, we're going to be here for a while, and I'm sorry.
So, did you know that men used to kneel to other men? And I'm butchering this a little bit, but back in, the medieval days, okay, men used to kneel to other men as a sign of respect. And women came in and said they wanted to be treated like lords. And women, we just love to do this. We want all the benefits of things without doing the work. So this doesn't surprise me about.
Okay, so two things. Number one, men bowing to men. Are you talking about in medieval times, the knights bowing to royalty and nobility, which consisted of both men and women? No, that's where you kind of screwed up just off the get-go. Now, as for the point she brought up, how a lot of women want the things without doing the work or having power without responsibility, that, I will say, a point there, she is not wrong about that. Get mad, I don't care, I don't really agree with a lot of stuff that PearlyThingz says, I really freaking don't. I think in a way that she's been brainwashed, and that's how she comes across, and I know a lot of this is stemming from a hurt relationship, and I'm not making fun of that. Having someone cheat on you is really effed up, so I'm not gonna touch that, mock that, whatever. But there's a lot of stuff that she comes across as really freaking twisted. Let's continue on. But she does have a point there. There's a lot of women who want to be in places of power but don't want to have the responsibility. They don't want to do the work, and all they do is destroy shit. She does have a point there. One.
Oh, female nature, okay? So the women come in and they demand this. And this is where proposing came from. So it's really interesting because, you'll hear conservatives say that we need to go back to traditionalism. But traditionalism isn't really traditional because romantic love used to be banned. It used to be taboo before 1,000 years ago.
Okay, so I think what she's trying to reference is a lot of the time back then is people would marry to United Kingdoms, to United States, for treaty purposes. Marriage has been used to bridge the gap in a great many things. But love, marrying for love, romantic love, has been around since Adam and Eve. Okay? So just because marriage has, as I said, has been used for a lot of things, treaties, kingdoms, estates, business, whatever, that does not mean that romantic love only just started 4,000 years ago. No. I don't even, and the thing is, she doesn't state her sources, and I know I can't go back and look and prove, oh, hey, these people were romantically in love, and blah, blah. There's no proof, but at the same time, like, we can reference the Bible, the freaking Bible stories of, let's bring up Sarah, I believe Sarah, the prophet Samuel's mother, because her husband had a second wife and she couldn't have a kid, and her husband loved her, so we can reference that story. Or King David with Bathsheba, and there's a couple of different stories you could just pick up from the Bible that they didn't marry for treaty, they didn't marry for this and they. I really, really did not want to make a video to this person. Good grief.
This all came from 1,000 years ago, and then all the women came together and said they wanted their romantic plays. They wanted, and then it became common.
Okay, you clearly have not read Shakespeare, because men can be romantics too. Have you not read anything by Shakespeare? And if I'm not mistaken, those plays are older than 1,000 years. So there was, you have Hamlet, you have Macbeth, you have the school's favorite every time they use this one, Romeo and Juliet, you have the Twelfth Night, you have Midsummer's Night Dream. That was Shakespeare. There was so much romance in those written by a man. Now he didn't write the plays outright. He gave the players their parts, and then someone later strung those parts all together. But there has been theater around for years that tell the stories of many, many people. And a lot of that time was written by men. This is why I think this woman is brainwashed, and why I've never wanted to respond to her, because just like that, you're not really arguing with logic when it comes to her. She has been indoctrinated into some fucked up crap, and it's kind of hard to sort through, because it's like, well, it's not the feminist stuff, but it's not also the actual tradition, what women really actually are. Anyway, I'm going to rant a little bit more after we get through this, because we're only a minute and 14 in. This is going to be a long video.
But before, you were just paired up with someone, and then the love and stuff maybe came later. And I just started to think about stuff. Like, I think about the idea of a man paying for a date. Now, to be fair, I have had men pay for dates before. But why do guys have to do that? But, I'll pay to, like, my life doesn't matter in this. Why do men have to do that? Why do men have to hold doors?
Okay, so I'm going to touch upon two things, too. That little Freudian slip, that little thing where she says her life doesn't matter in this. So, as I've touched upon already, and a lot of people mock Pearl. I've seen legit body shaming, and I don't use that word really just because of all the freaking nonsense around it. But it's used as a counterpoint when she goes out and tries to attack other women for their bodies, and it's nasty. Women are very, very catty. But having that little Freudian slip, how her life doesn't matter in this, yes, it does. And a lot of people, when it comes to Pearl Davis, talks about how, oh, well, she's just leeching off of her daddy's money, this and that. There's a lot to unpack from this woman, because she's also explained or claimed in the past how she was groomed by, I think, a college professor or a gym teacher. I don't remember the full story. But there's just so many psychological layers to this, and having her say, well, my life doesn't matter in this. Yes, it does. That type of talk, this is why I think she's so fucking wrapped up in with the fresh and fit shitheads and a few others that are like, you need to get the fuck away from these people, like ASAP, and like decompress and actually walk through whatever shit happened to you that is now just leaking into your entire system, if that makes sense. Because yes, it does. I'm not going to sit here and attack Pearl. There's stuff I've responded to on Twitter where it's just like, holy crap, woman, you really need to be quiet. And oh, there's just so much to unpack just from that little bit. And then having, in regards to men paying for things, for me, it goes both ways. I've treated my husband has treated me. There's stuff that he has paid for me, and vice versa. So there's nothing wrong with having it go both ways. I'm not one of these women that go, oh, well, the man has to pay for everything. No, I think that's bullshit. I do think women should treat their men as well. I think it needs to go both ways. So that's just me, but having that little Freudian slip in there, oh, well, my life doesn't matter in this, and it's like, whoa, okay, you really need to get away from the people you're associating with, because, hot damn, and I'm not going to sit here and do what Brittany Venti does or some of these other women do, because I've seen some catty shit on both sides, and it's like, this is not helping, and I understand she has pissed a lot of people off. I get it, there are times where I go, like, you just need to shut your face for 5 minutes, but yeah, oh my gosh.
Why do men have to pull out chairs? Are you incapable of pulling out a chair? You know, men used to kneel to kings, and now we kneel to women. Really, I think women just have this innate thing inside of them that just wants to be like godlike, because I see this in the trad women as well. They want to be like the mouth of Jesus. Like, it's so interesting because they'll like go around saying, live like me, as if they are a god everyone should be like and look up to. It's really interesting. And so, you know, the more I'm learning about chivalry, and I might have butchered some of this, the more I'm thinking, it seems like, and the research I've seen is backing me up on this, chivalry was invented by the feminists of the time.
Okay, so 2 things. So when it comes to the talking heads of how you should be as a trad wife, I ignore all of it. I grew up Pentecostal. And there's stuff I've talked about on my own channel, in regards to my struggles, and even posted clips, things like that, of certain things that I just don't know how to deal with, because I never had the tools back then to deal with those things, whether it be intimacy, effects from my essay, that sort of thing. It just, there's so much to freaking unpack here, and I know I do not have all the tools. I do not have all the understanding of what's fully going on under here, but the way that she is talking right now, so I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable. I used to talk like this in my teens to maybe about the age of 21. I would talk like this. And a lot of people thought I was a feminist. So she keeps going on how feminism at the time, which really didn't exist back then, created chivalry, but why should men have to pull out chairs? You were talking feminist talking points, Pearl, while at the same time trying to shit on feminism. And as far as chivalry, this is a simple Google search. The term chivalry derives from the Old French term chevalerie, which can be translated as horse soldiery. Originally, the term referred only to horse-mounted men, from the French word for horse, cheval, but later it became associated with knightly ideals. And the actual, if you want to look up what true chivalry was, because you do have the romantic version of knights protecting their ladies, being a servant, not. Let me put this, because I'm trying to explain this in a biblical way, not in a secular way. When the Bible says for a husband to be a servant to his wife, it does not mean she has control over him. That is a curse out of the book of Genesis, that she will desire her husband. So, yeah, that's not supposed to be a thing to where she controls him and all that sort of thing. That's not what the Bible talks about when it means being a servant. It means being the leader of your household and doing what it takes to take care of your house. And sometimes that's not always looked upon favorably. In some cases, the man can be seen as the bad guy or villain or whatever. There's just a lot of stuff that goes into being a leader that isn't really discussed. There's a lot of sacrifices and stuff that people in leadership roles, a real leader, is constantly putting in the back burner. Anyway, that's for another video. But chivalry mainly has to deal with freaking knighthood. That is a medieval concept of chivalry. Now, there's some really cons to it as to how it did treat women back then, so that is not a feminist concept, and it has been romanticized over the years as you are a knight to your queen, and that's a romanticizing of that relationship. Nowadays, we see chivalry as, feminist, I'm an independent, strong woman, blah, 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 blah. I don't need no man opening up no damn door for me. Again, when I was going through my struggles or whatnot, even before I was married, and there's still stuff I struggle with, I spoke like that, and those were feminist talking points. I had people think that I was a feminist, and the way that it just... Pearl's body language, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a counselor, I'm not any of those things, but her body language, I almost want to say that maybe she comes across maybe a little bit high. I don't know. I'm not implying she takes substances or stimulants or anything like that, but this is coming, her language, I recognize it, and it's coming from a really deep, broken area to where she feels like no one values her, she's ashamed of who she is, she's really insecure who she is. And this is a hard thing to face in the mirror, is when you feel, or it seems like all your life you don't have anybody that's willing to chase you, that doesn't value you, that doesn't want to take the time to properly care for you. And I'm not talking about materialistic, I'm talking about emotional, I'm talking about mentally. Perfect example with me, this is just, again, I recognize the way that she is speaking, which is part of the reason why I never wanted to make a video addressing her. But just to use me as an example, growing up in their church, I am a survivor of SA/rape. That is not an exaggeration. I went through child sex abuse growing up, and it was so bad my siblings heard freaking rumors about what happened to me. So, and I never had people either know how to take care of me spiritually or help me, or just didn't want to bother with it. So that's what I mean, is when someone feels like they don't have anybody that knows how to take care of them in that sort of way. I'm not talking, like, yes, it's nice to have financial backing and certain items, but that's not what I'm referring to. So the way that Pearl is talking right here tells me she's never had anybody, possibly for a long, long time, take care of her properly in the way that she needs to be. And so she is spouting all this shit, trying to justify why it was okay that she was neglected, at the same time putting in a point, well, I don't need this because I grew up without it. Does it make sense what I'm saying right now? Again, I never wanted to make a video on this, but this, I'm just like, holy crap, because I remember one of the things I struggled with growing up was the concept of knighthood and how I wanted to be a knight and all that. And I'm not bullshitting about that. So, and I looked up chivalry. I was looking up all these things. And, like, there was I forget which verse it is. I forgot where it's at. I want to say it's Romans. I think it, maybe Paul, is the verse talks about treating your wife as a weaker vessel. And that bothered the living shit shit out of me for years. It actually made me mad, and I try to make all the excuses and other bullshit. And then there was a few years ago that I got the analogy of marriage is like a sword, where you have the pommel, which the tang goes all the way through the hilt in a deep matter and connects to God. And the Bible talks about how the wife is to quietly lead her husband to God through her actions in a quiet way, show in a way, lead by example, not as a leader, but just being an example of Christ. Like, hey, husband, come this way, God is over here, lean to God, that sort of thing. And so I didn't quite understand all of this until I got that analogy, and a lot of stuff really started to freaking click and make sense. And the more that I've been exposed to stuff, say James, other stuff, and the stuff that I've been sorting through, I understand how important now a father's mantle is. And this is stuff I mocked when I was growing up because I was hurting, because I was angry at a lot of stuff that happened to me, and I was severely bullied and all that. And so I recognize a lot of this stuff. And unfortunately for Pearl, she has attached to the most toxic crap because it justifies and affirms the way that she feels about herself, and she projects that onto other women, other people. And unfortunately, you have a lot of hurt and lonely men. I'm not saying that mockingly, by the way. The dating world right now, just fuck it. Just light it on fire, because at that point, you're going to get better results with everything burned and starting up from scratch, regrowing. And I am so glad I'm not part of the dating pool. I really am. So she's latched on to people that affirms the way that she feels about herself, and is constantly subjecting herself to some deep psychological torment, which, again, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, but there's stuff I can pick out and recognize and go, holy shit, I know where some of this stuff is possibly coming from. Anyway, let's continue with the video. I never wanted to make a video on this one because there's some deep psychological stuff there. And unless she's actually wanting to address any of it properly, she's not going to listen to anybody. One of the things that when me and my dad got into arguments about certain stuff, when it came to this, and I can look back on those arguments go now, and it's like, oh, what are you saying? That makes sense. Is she's not in a spot to listen. She's going to continue to attach to these boys. That's what they are. Freaking Myron, Fresh and Fit, all these other freaking red pill idiots running around. Most of them are boys who don't know how to be men. And I don't have a schematic. I don't have a blueprint. I'm not going to sit here and tell men how to be men, because that's not how that freaking works. I have not been given such things. I'm a woman, so I cannot define manhood for men. It doesn't work that way. Anyway, let's continue.
And, the first woman that, publicly, and I got to find her name, but publicly had like romantic love was known as the Town 304.
So if you don't know what the term is 304 is, it's what Myron, however you pronounce his name, I don't give a shit. From Fresh and Fit, that's how he refers to women that he considers thoughts. It doesn't matter if the woman is an actual thought or not, he will call a woman he considers a thought a 304. That is the terminology he uses. That is why I'm saying she's fucking indoctrinated and brainwashed by this shit. And it's because a lot of her own hurt, which unfortunately that is a hard thing to freaking unravel.
So I'm gonna keep you guys posted with my research on this stuff. But yeah, chivalry was invented by women. And I don't think it's this amazing thing that we should go back to, because it inverts the natural order of the world. We like men that we serve, and chivalry tells the men to serve us. That's backwards. We like men that we do things for. And I saw this when I did my show, because, every chick missed the ex-boyfriend that she did so much for. So what does that tell you?
Okay, so I'm going to explain this because I can pick up a little bit on this. So you have, how do I put this? I've heard this argument before, and it's from my past supervisor, to where she talked about how she did everything for her husband, clothes, everything, yet her husband left her for another woman. Now, what Pearl does not go into, as far as I have heard, that everything that the woman has done for the man is everything she feel he needs, but it's could be possibly not what he actually needs. Now, that is also a mixed bag, because depending on how the guy is and his filters, and if he's actually, saying what he actually needs instead of what he thinks he needs, it's a whole other ball of wax. But so you can have a woman, I can pour everything, what I feel in my perception, in my filters, what I think my husband needs, and give him fuck all of what he actually needs. If that makes sense. I hope to God that makes sense. So the reason why women may feel as if they miss that boyfriend or that guy that they felt like they poured everything into, and try to follow me here, because it is them feel like they are taking care of somebody, and that's not to say that they're not, but also, stay with me here, it is a form of control. It is a way of having a thumb on everything. I am someone who has my finger on the pulse of just about everything in my house, because I'm like that. I can multitask. I've been taught how to do certain things by my dad. I've learned to do more things through experiences and whatnot. So I'm one of those people that just bam, 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 and this needs to be done. This is scheduled for this, blah, 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 blah. So I'm one of those people that does that. And I'll have my husband go, hey, slow down. Let me catch up. What's going on? So I move 8 million miles a minute. So it is a form, it could be seen as a form of control. And I'm sorry if that doesn't make sense to everybody, but again, being straight, I'm being straight with you guys. When it comes to, again, women feel like they pour everything into their guy, and from the guy's perspective, she could be pouring nothing into him. Again, that's a very nuanced argument. So Pearl does not go into what exactly the women pour into the guys.
We like men that we invest in, but we don't like men that invest a ton in us. That's why we have this phrase, nice guys finish last.
No, okay. So I love to be invested into. No, I don't. Just for a basic relationship, and we're not even talking romantic. If I have, say, a friend or a family member, and I invested them, I would love to get some investment back. Not because it's tit for tat, but it shows me that they care. It shows me that they are also paying attention to me, and I don't necessarily have to keep track of everything between us. It tells me that they actually give a shit. So this is another talking point that she's absorbed from Fresh and Fit Marin and the other red pill idiots running around of nice guys finish last. No, let me put that in a reword that. It is guys who sit on their ass expecting, and I'm not attacking men, so follow me, fellas, this is not an attack on you, but it's guys who either believe that they're nice, are looking in the wrong group of women for love, or because this is a big one, and I know a lot of men can relate to this, they do not know how to value themselves or they work properly, so they do not stand up for themselves, and they do not know how to fight for the things that they want properly. That is a thing. So it's not nice guys finish last. It is guys who do not know how to stand up in their own value properly. And that is another nuanced conversation, but it's not nice guys finish last. It is the guy looking in the wrong spot, it is maybe not the guy's time. There's something that she's putting off that is pushing women away. It could be a myriad thing. I hate the phrase nice guys finish last. No, it is maybe his priorities are not shuffled properly. There's a whole, I hate that fucking phrase. It is so inaccurate. It's only accurate in that freaking talks. Ugh. God, I hate that phrase.
Because feminists are always trying to invert the natural order of the world. They're always trying to put women akin to God. And I see this everywhere. I see this even with the TradCon women. Because it's so interesting because, and I never claimed to be trad, okay? I'm an athlete. I play volleyball. All right. But I know everyone's going to freak out, but whatever. I don't care. It's so interesting because they'll come in and like be like their brand. It's so weird. Their brand is almost their husband and their kid. It's like they don't even like their husbands. The way they talk about their husbands are like just a thing they can brag about. They just love like they love the status, but they don't seem to love the guy. Okay. And I'll see this where they almost act like in the family, and I see this in family dynamics all the time, like they know all morality. And it's so interesting because most of them lived life, like most of them got married after 25. Most of them have 2 kids, maybe 3. You know, most of them didn't really live that traditional. And I guess I don't think traditionalism, and I think true traditionalism is actually submitting to your husband's authority more so than any of that stuff.
Okay, so there's a few things to touch upon. So right off the bat, I talk about my father's mantle, husband's mantle. Yes, real traditionalism, traditional conservatism, biblical marriage. Yes, it is husband, head of the house, his mantle, and there's and I'm 100. I agree 100%. With that. Now, what I'm also hearing, because this is interesting, I'm not gonna mock what she's saying. So, in my search, because I think I can actually relate to her here, and it's freaking wild, because I'm hearing what I have been struggling to find as well. So you do have a lot of quote-unquote TradCon wife talking heads. And they talk about how submitting to their husbands and blah, blah, blah. But I think what she's getting at, and this is what I'm hearing, because this is what I'm struggling with too, is it's nothing but a facade, a farce, a grift. And this is something I'm kind of running into. Because when it comes to the TradCon talking heads, and I'm for the family, and I've talked about on and off of my channel, I've wanted kids, but I'm not in a spot to, and I don't know if that is something even for me to be a mother. But what I'm hearing, like the heart of what she's saying, like in this little bit, is that these women act like they're traditional. And they get on to other people who question, or they bring up certain stuff. Like in my case, so I'm not going to go too much into just the business of my house. I've talked about myself planning my own channel. But there are circumstances to where a traditional setup is impossible. There's baggage that can be baggage from both husband and wife, the childhoods, and there could be certain things that neither husband or wife know how to do because they weren't given a proper example of it growing up. There's other circumstances that aren't, I guess, normally talked about or normally dealt with. There's stuff that I have dealt with that I can find no information on when it comes to the Christian sphere or the secular sphere. I am at a point where I feel nobody knows what the fuck they're talking about, or they don't know how to portray anything properly for shit. I've had conversations with my dad, and he's very much a God-fearing man. And I try to keep in contact with him more often than not, and we just talked again earlier this evening. But we've had conversations to where he doesn't feel that the church has taught marriage properly either. And I'm not talking about going against the biblical concept, man being the head of the house, wives submit to your husbands, husbands love your wives as Christ has loved the church, that sort of thing. There's different strengths. A woman is stronger in a different way than a husband. Husband is stronger than a woman in a completely different way than her. And so that's not what we're referring to or what's been talked about. What's being referred to is what that actually looks like. Just for an example, this was like a few months ago, technically last year, where I came across something for a transformed wife and there's like this stupid thing going on how men can't be emotional in front of their wives or can't be really vulnerable to their wives. And one woman responds to the transformed wife going, oh, well, if my husband becomes emotional, then I have to take up arms. You bet your fucking ass you do. Because there are times where a woman is going to have to take up arms in that sort of way because her husband is in a vulnerable, freaking emotional state, and he needs time to get himself repaired. And it can't be forever, just back and forth. But that's just like one example of where I feel what I'm hearing is something that I can actually relate to. It's nothing but a brand. Okay, it's like, what does that actually look like? Will you actually deal with? I'll give you an example. So one of the things that I dealt with a few weeks ago, my husband got into a wreck. Somebody sideswiped him in his work vehicle. I got sent the picture, and guess what my ass did? I freaking drove out there as soon as I was off work. I made sure he was okay. The police had already come and gone. Statements had been taken. But I still went out there and made sure he was okay and helped get him back to his office or shop, and because he had to crawl back in another work vehicle and get back to work, unfortunately. But I went out there, and made sure he was okay and helped in any way that I could. And that's just one thing. I'm being incredibly vague because I don't want to dox and whatever. But that's just one example. It's like, what does it look like? Do you guys actually let your men break down and just go, have fun? Because that's something that me and my dad have also talked about, and I've also referenced it on my channel, on how, why is it that when men struggle, they get in a place of vulnerability, or they get into a place of breaking down? Why is it that women can't step up and step in for that time? And I'm not talking about being leaders of the house, but just like being alongside them, like, hey, I'm here. You can be vulnerable with me. I love you. Let's get through this. And I don't hear I have yet to see any of the Trad wife talking heads talk about this, not even the freaking Christian sphere. And this is how the real red pill movement was birthed, was by feminists going through and realizing, wow, these men really do have all these problems that aren't really addressed. Mental health, family court. But this isn't even talked about by the new red pill movement. All the original stuff that made the movement, it birthed it, because I was around when it freaking popped off, because you had Lacey Green, Chris Reagan, those two were dating, and he supposedly red pilled Lacey Green. This was years ago, maybe 5. No, 6. Anyway, but that is all done and gone. What I'm seeing of the new red pill movement, what Pearl has latched onto, is just toxic as fuck, and it's nothing but MGTOW shit. It is toxic boys running around saying, oh, well, if you are a real man of value, you would have this. It's bullshit. So, but what I'm hearing from Pearl, and I can relate, is you have so many talking heads talk about this and that, but there's really nothing to show. It is a brand. And this I do agree with her on. Because it's like, okay, let me present you my situation, what I deal with, which is freaking out of the norm. What do you say to this shit? I probably wouldn't get an answer for some of the stuff I've dealt with on my end as a wife, because it's not in the traditional realm of shit. So no, I actually completely agree with her. A lot of these talking hands, it's their brand. But do they actually live by it is a whole other question. Because if you did, you wouldn't be bragging about so much on Twitter. It's like people bragging about their sex life on Twitter. I have great sex, blah, 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 and then their sex life is shit. I've seen it, and a perfect example, literally, of it is from the Vic Mignogna stuff. Monica Rial and Ron Toy talked about how they have great sex. A few months later, they fucking separated. I'm not making that up. So the more that people talk about what they do online, it means they're not actually doing it in real life. Just saying. It's been proven time and time again. Let's continue.
But they don't really seem to submit to their husband's authority. Like they most of them belittle their husbands. They'll kind of make jokes about how he's, jokes along the lines of like, oh, she knows everything, he doesn't. I don't know, guys. These are the things I think about. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm researching this. I'll have more updates. If I got anything wrong, let me know. But this is what I've noticed. So like this, subscribe.
So that is a thing too, and that's something. So this is, I've seen enough bullshit from Fresh and Fit, man, and this is something that they don't address when it comes to what she just stated, is you do have jokes being made, oh, well, she knows everything, the man doesn't know anything. I can tell you that is one of the fastest ways to tear down a guy and make him feel stupid and feel like he just, whatever he does doesn't matter, or whatever he says doesn't matter. Now, as I've stated before, is because I'm someone who can move 1,000,000 miles per minute and have a lot of stuff going on, multiple lists going on, like, hey, this needs to be done now, blah, 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 blah. And it can sometimes overwhelm my husband and make him feel like, well, what the fuck am I doing? Whatever I do doesn't matter. So that, making jokes of how your guy doesn't know anything and you know everything is the most arrogant shit I've ever seen. And she does have a point. Like, there's stuff here that I agree with, and I'm here going, I can relate to this, but I can also pick out and go, this is where some of this other talk, like with the chivalry, like her research on it is dead wrong. A simple Google search, it had to do with the freaking knighthood back then. And actually, real chivalry wasn't always nice to women of the medieval ages. Feminists do not make up chivalry. Again, simple Google search. It was right there. I showed you guys. And that little sip that she had, oh, well, my life doesn't matter in this. Yes, it does. And because so many things have gotten twisted, and the new red pill movement has unfortunately garnered a lot of lonely men, and it just, I hate the new red pill movement. I miss it when it first freaking blossomed, and what happened? What the fuck happened to that mess, man? A bunch of damn grifters coming on, and I just, in a way, as much as Pearl irritates me, I actually feel bad for her. I really do, because when you have someone who cannot sift through, and I'm not claiming to be an expert, there's still a lot of stuff where I'm just like, this is going to stay in a box, fuck touching this shit. Because either I don't have the tools, mental space, or whatever just to deal with it. But when you have someone who doesn't know how to sort through their stuff, or doesn't have the tools, or doesn't have the backing, they can attach to whatever's going to affirm how they truly feel about themselves. And I really think, because it's been talked about, it's kind of been implicated, that Pearl really does not like herself. Actually, she hates herself. I'm not making fun. Self-loathing is very toxic. It's intertwined with shame. Anybody who deals with it, it is a very hard thing to break out of in a lot of ways. I haven't broken out of it myself. because there's stuff that it seems like life just reaffirms. And I feel like Pearl, this is going to sound really morbid and twisted, but for people who struggle with shame and self-hatred, it's going to make sense. It's easier to find something that affirms the way that you feel about yourself than breaking through that wall, having God show you how to break through that stuff, because it's less painful when you get affirmation about your self-loathing, about how you think you are, and that sort of toxic way than it is to actually sort through the lies and where the lies started from. I hope that makes sense, and I know that will make sense to people who are struggling to, who have walked through that. And I really feel just the way that Pearl is in this, and I've never wanted to armchair her or psychologically take this stuff apart, but this she's indoctrinated and brainwashed by this freaking shit, and I don't even know where she is researching, where she's even looking, because her first result should have been where Chivalry came from: knighthood, the knights that were loyal to the king and queen and nobles of the time. So she's not in a spot to listen, and there's many people who get onto her, argue with her, and this and that, and if she by chance finds this video or the red pill idiots, God, I hope you people hear what I'm saying, because there's a lot to unpack in this 6-minute video, and my video is almost a freaking hour, because holy moly. There's God. I really hope she's able to break free from this stuff. I don't think I'm going to do another video, because some of this stuff upsets me, not because of what she's saying, but it's because of where the source is of why she's saying it, if that makes sense. Where it's just like, that is some deep wounds, and I don't know anything about Pearl's past. I don't think anybody's actually done a type of video where they've sat down, they psychologically actually looked in between the lines of what she's saying, because for a while she was around the transformed wife, talking about, and would parrot the transformed wife a lot, whatever she put out, and the transformed wife thinks women should be barefoot and pregnant and in the kitchen, which is toxic as fuck, and whatever. So, and then I didn't follow her. I actually kind of forgot she existed. No, that's not a mockery. I legit forgot that this was an associate of the transformed wife. I don't know if she is anymore. And then started to see her shit because of a Twitter acquaintance I have. And it's like, oh, yeah, no, I remember you. So I'm going to wrap it up here. I'm sorry if this was all over the place. I have never responded to PearlyThingz before, like ever, and I never really wanted to, but this was like, oh, you are indoctrinated full-blown, because a simple Google search, the fact that she's contradicting search that are literally right there on the front page, and I'm not saying all the sources are 100% accurate, like, no, but you guys get what I'm saying. It's literally right there. Right there. Chivalry had nothing to do with feminism. Nothing. It was actually part of the knighthood, and then it was actually used in a sort of way, medieval times, to kind of control women, because women couldn't do certain things, and it's considered chivalrous to treat women a certain way. So that is another mixed bag. But holy cow, hopefully you guys could understand what I'm saying, and the people who might or might not stumble across this video, and I might even tag her. You know what? Fuck it, I'm going to tag her on Twitter in this show. Pearl, if you're watching this, I hope to God you hear what I'm saying, because there's actually stuff in this clip, not with everything you're saying, because there's a lot of stuff where it's like, you are just parroting shit, but in this clip, I'm just like, I can relate to you here, and here's some stuff that you may want to really introspect on. With that being said, I'm going to wrap it up here. You guys have a nice one.